Now, speaking of Stranger Things, actually, they have this baked into the show, something called a hive mind. And I'm sure like everyone knows what a hive mind is, except when we think hive mind or we hear that, we tend to think what Stranger Things shows, some kind of sci-fi, some kind of made up good versus evil maybe, but like it's something like made up and it's not real, and it's just this is put there to give power to something that needs to be defeated in a TV show or in a movie. However, a hive mind is a real thing, and I'm going to read to you about it. So, first things first. The idea of a hive mind sits at the intersection of biology, neuroscience, physics, and information theory. Parts of it are very real and scientifically documented, while other parts drift into speculation or science fiction. I'll clearly separate what is proven, what is experimentally supported, and what remains theoretical. So, number one, what is a hive mind actually? So scientifically, what it means, it doesn't mean telepathy or loss of individuality, which I would argue a little with ChatGPT there. This, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'll get to it. Many independent agents following simple rules, producing coordinated, intelligent group behavior without a central controller. This is called collective intelligence or distributed cognition. If you have observed the left at all in recent years, it appears to be they're operating in a hive mind is what it looks like. And in fact, now that we're seeing all this stuff with Israel, I'd say people who hate Israel are operating under the same thing, which is a hive mind. But let's keep going. Where hive minds are 100% real and proven, social insects like ants, bees, and termites. Here's how it works. No leader ant or queen brain. Each individual follows local rules. Information spreads via chemical signals, which has a word, touch, vibration. The colony behaves like a single problem-solving organism. So a hive mind is found naturally in God's design. That's the first thing to take note of, that this is a natural thing that God made, that obviously doesn't apply to all animals or whatever, but it's a real thing that God clearly made in certain circumstances. So the second thing is flocks, schools, and swarms observed in birds, fish schools, and locust swarms. The rules are simplified. They avoid collisions. They match speed, direction with neighbors. They stay close, but not too close. Like if you've ever seen birds flying south for the winter, they take a certain shape and they all fly together without someone with a megaphone telling them when to change direction. Next. They have no leader, no master plan, yet the group moves like a single fluid intelligence. This has been mathematically modeled and replicated in simulations. So obviously people looked at this, how are they doing this? And then they've tried to replicate it in a sim. But the third thing that's interesting is the human brain is itself a hive mind, which I'd never heard of before. Obviously the ants and bees and birds are easy, but the brain I hadn't considered. So your brain has 86 billion neurons, no central CEO neuron. Consciousness emerges from coordination, which is potentially why they think they can copy consciousness, because they think they can scientifically break it down, I'm guessing. Each neuron is simple, only talks to neighbors, fires, or doesn't fire. Yet you experience identity, thought, emotion, and memory. You are already a biological hive mind. So keep that in mind. I find that very interesting, and I'll get back to it at the end when I'm done reading. So human collective intelligence, which is documented. Group cognition. Studies show groups can solve problems better than individuals, predict outcomes more accurately, detect patterns individuals miss. This is called the wisdom of crowds when conditions are right. So this, again, it doesn't work like it does exactly with bees or like birds or whatever, but they've seen this in humans. And that second part, synchronized human brains. Yes, this is real. We're beyond conspiracy theories here. It's an actual thing. EEG and fMRI studies show people in conversation, musicians playing together, teachers and students engaged, groups meditating together, which is the occult, essentially. Their brain waves synchronize. This is measured, not speculation. So again, it's not a conspiracy theory. How information moves through a hive mind, there are only a few mechanisms, no magic required. So you have local signals, like with ants, it's actually a chemical thing. And then once this loads, there's a visual thing with birds, auditory with humans, and digital with the internet. So different ways of moving things around depending on what you're dealing with. Feedback loops, behavior spreads, reinforces itself, self-corrects. Resonance, when symptoms oscillate together, information flows more efficiently. This is a physics principle seen in lasers, clocks, heart cells, and brain waves. And there may be more once I get to it. I had to break these up or else they wouldn't fit on the screen. So can a hive mind be controlled? This is where reality and speculation often get mixed. What science does support, a collective can be influenced by information flow, signal amplification, environmental constraints, reward/punishment structures. Examples: traffic flow manipulation, social media virality, stock market sentiment, and crowd behavior during emergencies. So obviously, if you know these things and you want to try to control people, you got some ideas of where to start and what to start with. So the key point: no need to control individuals. You shape the environment and signals. What science does not support, a hidden central consciousness controlling all humans, telepathic mind control at a distance, a single entity possessing a population. These belong in science fiction, metaphysical belief systems, and conspiracy narratives. I'll give you some of that Chat GPT, but at the same time, you're not aware. You're not going to admit to the deep state, the occult, or the antichrist system like I am. So we're going to differ a little bit. Artificial hive minds that are actively used today: swarm robotics, drones coordinating without leaders, AI and symbols outperforming single models, distributed decision-making systems. These systems are explicitly modeled after ants and brains. So they've taken what they've observed that's naturally occurring and they've replicated it. So the big scientific takeaway: hive minds are real. They're emergent, not mystical. They arise from many agents, simple rules, shared signals, feedback loops. They do not require telepathy, loss of free will, or a hidden controller. Although guarantee you throw some of those things in, you're gonna see results. The deeper question, where science stops: science can explain how coordination happens. It does not fully explain consciousness, subjective experience, whether collective awareness could ever arise at higher scales. That's where philosophy, theology, and speculative science begin, not end. So here's why I'm sharing this. So again, like with so to start at the beginning, a hive mind is seen in nature. God's design, right, is with ants and with bees and with birds and even our own brains. Like it said, there's not a one neuron that controls, and it's like it's all of them working together. So God made this. This is God's idea, God's design. Now, what do we know about the devil? The devil likes to corrupt God's nature or his design, whether it's something that just occurs in nature, whether it's a person, which obviously is priority number one for the devil, but the devil corrupts everything he can that God made. So here's the thing. And again, science, there's a fine line between science and the occult. And once you push things to a certain extent, you end up in the occult. So trying to copy consciousness, trying to clone people, trying to put implants in people's brains, and all of these things is you're crossing the line from science and you're getting into the occult. And I think with this hive mind, that's exactly what they're doing. So if you've been watching, and I couldn't tell you which episode this was in. This has been a long time. A while back, I talked about something called the worldwide hum, which is people from Canada to the UK to America and even other countries have reported hearing a sound, and it can be described by some people as a diesel engine. Other people, it's more of a vibration. You know, people describe it differently, but many people have said it drives them nuts. Not everybody can hear it, but enough people have reported it that you need to take it seriously. They're hearing something. So now some of that could be underground drilling. Who knows? Because we know there are tunnels underground. So it could be that. And this is where I came up with my own conspiracy theory. So this is conjecture. It is a theory. I don't have facts to support this. But I wondered if there's a particular sound or frequency or vibration that is driving people nuts, that's irritating them. I wonder if the powers that be would be emitting a signal, a sound of some kind of vibration, whatever it is, that's subtle enough not everybody would hear it, but enough to irritate people, enough to drive people potentially insane or drive them to violence. Because I asked, I think ChatGPT or whatever I was using, is there any correlation between violent crime in areas where this worldwide hum is heard? And there was a little bit of one. So obviously correlation and causation are not the same thing, but that's a consideration. So that being said, if in our military has admitted to having weapons that will emit a certain signal or frequency that demoralizes the enemy, that breaks them down mentally and encourages them to give up, leave the area. Our military has weapons like that. So that's a real thing, that a sound or a frequency can contribute, can impact behavior. So that being said, if you are a scientist or even an occultist who's also scientist or whatever, who's dabbling in this whole hive mind thing, and you find that sounds will influence behavior, then you can create a hive mind without telepathy, without announcing something that the world hears necessarily, without even having to say things. But again, if you've studied satanic ritual abuse victims, many of them were traumatized, and then they were whatever they did to them during the abuse, they were taught and trained to react a certain way to a verbal cue, whether it was a sound or a signal of some kind, or it could have been a word. And so if they're doing that in Satanism, in the occult, you know, I would say it's the same source. If someone is doing that to create, to influence behavior of a particular group of people, a whole group of people, because you understand how a hive mind works. They've, again, like it said, they've recreated this based off of what they've observed from certain animals, and they've run simulations to try to do it. So you don't have to have you don't have to have a Wizard of Oz type something or other behind a curtain controlling everything. You can just emit sounds or vibrations or whatever it is, and then influence a group of people to act like they're part of a hive mind, which, again, I think that crosses into the occult. And I think that's what you're seeing with how nuts the left has gone. They've abandoned reason. They've abandoned any kind of moral compass. They all take the same position and don't know why. Like I said, the people that are free Palestine, they don't care about those people. They don't even know anything about them, but they all are taking the same position without any rational thought and without even any personal involvement. It's just that it's like they're conditioned to do that. And you're seeing the same thing with just the anti-Israel rhetoric. Yeah, it has to be this. And so they're all just going that way. And you know, if you were to really ask them why, they would, well, I watched a video that exposed this. Okay, there might be a little bit of that, but it's like there's an influence that's making everybody go in a certain direction, And they, again, like Candace is a good example of this as well. Whatever she's doing, I think it's satanic, because she's had people following and she's not produced anything credible. And yet they're like, no, I think it's true. It's right. And people attacking her are guilty. And it's like, you don't even have any logic to stand on. It's like all emotion, and you can't even really explain why you have the positions that you have. So it's, I think, indicative of a hive mind type of reaction. And so again, if God made this, and that you see it in certain animals and even our own brains and stuff, do you not think the enemy could not, in his best way, attempt to corrupt that and use it against people? Of course he will. And the thing is, he can't outright violate your free will. God can't even violate your free will, or that would make him unjust. God can't violate your free will, and neither can the devil. But the devil, being a liar and a deceiver, he can absolutely get you convinced that you don't have a say in the matter. Oh, that's why people think if there's a particular sin that they're caught in, I just can't stop. No, you can stop, but it's a lie from the pit of hell that makes you think that you can't. Your free will is just that, free will, and the devil is a liar, and he'll use everything he can to influence your behavior so that it becomes impulsive, or it becomes routine, and it becomes regular to you, and it's just the way, and then get you to accept it. This is just the way that I am. No, it doesn't have to be. That's not the way that you are. You're being lied to, and you're being manipulated, and all you have to do is fight against it and continue and say, no one and nothing will take my free will from me, and expose the devil for the liar that he is. Obviously, if as a believer you now legally have dominion over sin since Christ. But if you go all the way back to the earliest book, Genesis, it's within like it might be later in chapter 3 or chapter 4. It's very early, after when God is talking to Cain, and he said, the enemy wants, sin is crouching at the door, but you must rule over it. So back then, the fall had happened. Satan had the legal dominion of the earth at that point. And yet, even then, God is saying you can resist sin. So even though there's the impulse is there, the temptation is there, the desire to do the thing that you shouldn't do, you still can say no, because your free will is never actually taken from you. Even if you get demon possessed, there will be things that demon will drive people to do, but at the end of the day, he can't fully take your free will from you. There may be times of paralysis, times of, I don't even know why I did that type of thing. But at the end of the day, your free will can't be taken from you. God gave it to you, and nothing and no one can take it. So that's why people can be saved. As insane as they may be going, as far left and nutty as they've gone, they can be brought back. Which I remember someone saying, whoever it was I was listening to, they said, you'd be amazed how nice the bus is once you get all the passengers off of it. Meaning there may be a demon possessed person that is nuts and you can't stand them and all this stuff. But if they would just get deliverance, you'd be amazed how great that person is and how much God loves that person. They're made in his image and they're awesome. If they would just get they need deliverance. They've got to get the influence of the devil out of them and off of them. And you'd be amazed at what a great person they would be. So anyway, hive mind, again, if you see it in nature, Satan can do his best to corrupt it. And then when you couple the advances in science with the occult, that's where you're getting into playing God, and you're getting into the attempt to rob people of their free will and convince them that that they can't. This is just the way that it is. That's such a lie from the enemy, is to convince people that this is just the way things are and they can't do anything about it, and to accept things as they are. That's such a lie. And he does it with Christians. Well, as long as we live on this earth, it's a fallen world. And so people, I could get cancer. You just get people to accept how things are, not knowing, no, actually, I have a say in the matter. I have dominion over you. I have dominion over these things. And it's not going to be as you say, it's going to be as I say. So I don't accept this. But if he can get you, again, into a state of paralysis, whether it's actually paralysis or you are just convinced that it is, it reminds me of, you've probably seen it. It's shown up in movies and stuff where someone is in a room and they just assumed that they're locked in. They assumed the door is locked, and the door actually wasn't locked, and they could have walked right out at any time they wanted, but they never turned the doorknob because they just assumed they were a prisoner locked in. They didn't even try to get out. So that's a lie of the enemy. This is the way things are. You need to accept it. And there's no getting out. Where it's like, if you would just push back, like the devil says, resist, or the Bible says, resist the devil and he'll flee from you. If you would just do that, you'd come to find out that you're accepting a bunch of things that you don't need to accept. So anyway, I do think there's a hive mind in operation that is affecting people spiritually. It's affecting people politically. It's affecting people socially, because somebody under the influence of the devil has figured out how to control people in mass and get them to all act a certain way. And it doesn't even make sense. They don't have anything in common with each other. They don't know why they're doing it. They don't know why they think it. But they're all going the same direction because somebody's weaponized, whether it is physical, like actual audible signals or frequencies that are going out, or it could be what's being reported in the legacy media. I wouldn't be surprised if there are words that they keep repeating. Again, go back to studying satanic ritual abuse. There are certain words that trigger behavior for people that have been abused and tortured, and then likely possessed, in that they go to work on something at the trigger of a word. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there are words they're repeating in the mainstream media that are having an effect on people who are listening, and it's influencing a particular behavior. Words are powerful. The power of life and death is in the tongue, the Bible says. So we as Christians can take advantage of that and understand the importance of it, and the devil can try to corrupt it as well and use it to his advantage. So words carry a lot of weight. So that should be, if you're watching the news, the best thing you can do for yourself is turn it off, stop listening to it. And as I was saying earlier, it's such a time of rampant deception. Get spirit filled, get full of the Spirit of God, stay grounded in Scripture, consume it every single day, and pray, ask the Lord to help you not be deceived, to keep your eyes open, to keep aware of the deception that's going around, to expose it, and ask the Lord to help you, because it's going to be a time of tremendous deception. And if you're not using the tools you have that God gave you to help you stay ahead of this stuff, and you're kind of asking to get deceived. And that's not something you should want as a Christian, or even anybody. Anyway, I wanted to show you that there's real science to support the hive mind, and I think the weaponization of it in a negative way. So